right, get down with the SlimNation 101 podcast theme song. That funky sax. Be right with me. Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the SlimNation 101 podcast. Okay, it's a Tuesday morning, and it's Independence Day. 4th of July, independence when America was declared its independence from the motherland, the mother country, not Africa, but England. And some of us still weren't free, but yet we celebrate this day since 1776 as Independence Day for some. But I guess America came into its own during that time, so we are part of America, even though we were slaves until we were free. So it is what it is, and we celebrate this. And I hope everybody is enjoying their day off and having a good time as far as dealing with what's going on now. Well, good morning to you all, and we are here with you this morning again, and just wanted to talk about a little bit about myself, and had a podcast that I started a few years ago, and it's basically an audio podcast that's on Spotify, and try to keep that up as well. But early on, when I was doing that, I guess I started that during the pandemic, in the midst of the pandemic when we were all shut in. So it was something for me to do, and I sat there and talked about certain things, certain issues. Uh, and one of the issues I talked about was, living a privileged life, and it's people in out there in podcast world that will know what I'm talking about. Uh, Back in the late 50s and early 60s. I was born in 1954, and it's well talked about or documented that I was adopted and by my parents, uh, James and Fannie Mae Overton, and um, didn't know I was adopted until when I was 21, when my brother Ron Goodrich came to my home and put it all out there in the opening. But that's a whole nother story. We'll talk about that again. I've talked about that many times. But I wanted to talk about, when I was adopted into this family, that's all I knew, being born in 1954, as I mentioned, and not seeing pictures, looking back until 1958. So somewhere around in between when I was born in 1958, I was adopted. Don't know the exact year when I came, but I know I was young enough to remember some things that happened that went on when I was with my birth family. And I had three brothers and a dysfunctional family, which the three brothers were moved, or four of us at one time were moved from foster home to foster home, or different families in the neighborhood would take care of us. And we might be at one house one night, and I'm getting all this from Ron, and another house another night because who could take care of four boys, and most of those families had children of their own, so they sort of shared the responsibility when my birth parents weren't there. But anyway, got I was adopted, and that's all I knew, except for a few memories that I later discovered was memories, but they were dreams, constant dreams I was having, the same dreams for up until when I was 21. So thought they were dreams, just reoccurring dreams, but they were memories. But anyway, those little memories. But I don't remember the actually coming to the home as an adopted kid. I just remember growing up in the household. And I can remember, Christmases were very it's a fun time for me because being the only child, I was had plenty the Christmas tree was full, every Christmas and had plenty of toys. I would run back and forth from one toy to the next. And not only did my parents supply a lot of gifts, but we had family members and people that I called uncle and aunts that weren't really uncles and aunts by blood, but they were friends of my family that were, I couldn't call them by their first name. So they became uncles and aunts, and I had plenty of those. Anybody who was a friend to my parents or in their circle, they were my uncle and aunt, and uh, that's how I spoke to them. That's how I communicated with them. So anyway, and I got all these toys, and in my mind, I thought Christmas was like that for everybody in the neighborhood. Everybody got plenty of toys and bikes every year until I started going out, excuse me, got old enough to visit some of my neighbors during Christmas time. And we lived in a neighborhood, Truxton, Katy Heights. Like many of the black neighborhoods back there, a lot of the families had um, from three or more children. It was not a lot of only children. It was a few, but most of the families in our neighborhoods had three or more kids, and some up to the point of 12 or more. So I would visit around Christmas time when I started going out, and noticed that everybody's Christmas wasn't quite like mine. Uh, Even families that might have had 5 children, uh, they still didn't have as much under their tree as I did as one person. So, I was kinda confused by that because, like I said, I thought everybody had the same type of Christmas I did. It came once a year, so all the parents were able to just flood their children with nothing but toys. But, that was a quick reality, uh, that I learned at a young age. Everybody wasn't as privileged as I was, and, you can turn that also into blessed as I was to be adopted into a family that was probably considered at that time, use the term middle class. Uh, we weren't rich, but we were middle class, and a lot of families in our neighborhoods were in that category too. But I did notice that all those families, most of the families had two parents in the home, and even if they had multiple kids, they provided for them. They always, you know, you couldn't tell once they came out the house, and when you were in school, you couldn't really tell who was who was less fortunate. I'll use that word than you, and maybe less fortunate isn't quite the proper word. Didn't have as much because with the two parent families and the way those families provided for their children, no matter how many they had, I don't think any of them felt unfortunate. They had what they had, and they provided for all of those children. And that was just the way it was back then. But me, myself, I fell into that sort of privileged life and right in the middle of the neighborhood. And when I saw that most of the kids didn't get as much as I got, and one of the things I had no problem sharing what I had as far as, sharing what I got for Christmas, what I could share as far as the toys. And, I guess it was a way for me to make friends too. I guess in about somebody might say we were buying your friends, but most of the kids in the immediate neighborhoods on the street, Pinewell Street, were already friends, and they just, hopefully saw me as, one of the guys in the neighborhood. I just had a little bit more than most people, but, I didn't I tried not to throw it in their face, and I saw some people do that, turn their nose up at people that didn't have as much as they did. and that was unfortunate. And there were some people that I knew. You know, my father was an attorney, uh, and a black attorney back in the day when he was coming in the neighborhood was very valuable to the black communities because it wasn't a lot of black attorneys, and so he was quite busy. Many people came to him. You had other attorneys that came a little after him, but I think when he started, it was very few. And then you had some white uh, law firms that usually didn't uh, entertain black clients, but you had some that did and did a good job for a lot. There was a few law firms out here that a lot of the people in the black communities were familiar with and went to often to be represented. But kept my father very busy and well respected. Hey, Francis Robinson, how you doing? Francis Robinson, as I'm talking about my childhood and upcoming. Francis was in Douglas Park Elementary School with me, so we kind of grew up at a very young age together. And I can remember Francis um, being sort of a, and no disrespect to you, Francis, you were like a tomboy. You were just as rough as some of the boys in the class, and very most of us, all of us, respected that. But turned out to be a fine young woman, and I appreciate you, Francis, for tuning in. And you take me back just to see your name, and your original name was Francis Watson. See, my memory is good there, Francis Watson. I think that was right, Francis Watson, or Watson. No, Watson, Francis Watson, at Douglas Park Elementary. I remember you, Francis. But anyway, getting back to uh, me sort of living that privileged life, um, and I mentioned Francis and going to Douglas Park. Like I'm going to school every day. I might go to school every day for a month. Well, maybe not that long, but maybe 3 weeks, and never wearing the same thing. My mother uh, made sure she had plenty of clothes for me, and I thought that was normal to have something different on every day. I thought everybody did that too, and I really didn't pay attention in elementary school or beyond if everybody. To me, everybody was in something different. That was something, some people notice things, and I was one of those people that didn't notice things like that. But I knew that my mother laid out something different for me to wear every day, and you think back on that, and you think about how privileged that was during those times in an area where everybody didn't have that. But anyway, so that was my life coming up. The privilege of my parents were a part their circle, even though my parents. I can say this about them, my father, because he came from very humble beginnings. Grew up in a very poor neighborhood, Gilmanton, in what's now Chesapeake. And my mother grew up in a part of Churchton, very humble beginnings. All of them had brothers and sisters. So they had to work hard. My father worked hard to exceed and get where he was, becoming a teacher and then later an attorney. But anyway, their circle was people in the city that were of a certain means, um, the way I put it, and they had different clubs, and I always admired that. And because back during those times, they couldn't go everywhere. The Jim Crow laws were in effect, where colored folks couldn't go certain places, couldn't be a part of different country clubs or things like that. And even way before that, couldn't be a part of any fraternity. So that's was the start of the black fraternities. They started their own. My dad was member of Kappa Alpha Psi, which he pledged at Virginia Union University. And I'll have a story about that later. But anyway, and so they were in many social clubs, and my dad was in professional clubs. There was the Old Dominion Bar Association, which was a group of black lawyers, um, because during that time they couldn't be a part of the, I guess it was called the American Bar Association, which was composed of mostly white lawyers, and they were not allowed. And then even when they opened it up for them to become the Old Dominion Bar Association, was still very active because it was still issues that the black lawyers had to come together and deal with. Uh, so that was Old Dominion Bar. So that was one of the professional clubs. And then as being a Kappa Alpha Psi, they had certain conventions. So we traveled a lot to go to certain states in the United States, in the country for conclaves or whatever they call them for the Kappas and other social events that were national organizations like Guardsmen, which are a group he was in. And you really had to be of a certain means to be in that because of simply the dues and the traveling they did. But and there was other smaller groups, the Lama Teens here locally that my mother was involved in, and there was some other groups, and you had the Moes, which was a national group, and you had the Girlfriends, a national group, the Links, which is a national group. But my mother was in the Girlfriends, that national group. But all of them went to each other's events, so it was a gathering of a lot of different people from all different walks of life that worked hard, and many of them played hard, but they were in a certain economic circle. And I can say for my parents, it didn't really matter. Um, they didn't hold their nose up, even though they were able to be a part of those organizations. They really didn't hold their nose up at other people because um, because they never forgot where they came from. Uh, and there were some people in those groups that came from those same humble beginnings, but when they got there, they kind of looked down on the people that weren't economically equal to them or socially equal to them, which I thought was very unfair. Even at a young age, I couldn't get with that. Um, People were people to me. They were people in all walks of life that were bad people and really good people. And it didn't matter. Money didn't make you one way or the other. If that was the way you were, that was the way you were. But had a pretty privileged life, and the older I got and looked back on it, the more I realized that there were some things that I didn't take advantage of. I just you know uh, being that privileged, and I probably could have. I think one of the main reasons my father, when the adoption came and he got a boy through the adoption, it was to him. It was well, I had this single office business as an attorney, and this is going to be my legacy. This is going to be the person that's going to uh, come up when he finishes his education and take over this Overton attorney at law offices, and that was his dream, and very well. And when I was in high school, it was mine too, sort of. Still wasn't thinking seriously. If you look in the yearbook, 1972, and in the back where they have, you know, what do you want to be when you grow up? I had, I was going to major in political science in college and be an attorney, and that's what I said in high school, and that's the way I felt in a way, but I really wasn't thinking seriously about that. I was thinking all of us gonna come, you know, and when I should have been more serious about, my grades going into school now. When it came around to college, you talk about now um, legacies, and now that they stopped the affirmative action, the Supreme Court, and now they're suing for people who get into college because of legacy, because their parents went there or their parents paid a lot of bought a building or have a building named after them. And they're challenging that now since they struck down the affirmative action deal. But, that's a conversation for another time. And I hope I have a guest on to talk about that because that's a whole thing about striking that down and who benefited from it and how they benefited from it. It's something that really goes deeper than what people see on the surface. It was a goal of the conservatives to get rid of that because they thought it was unfair. They thought a lot of blacks or people of color were getting in certain schools, were getting certain jobs because of their color. Um, in most cases, in all the cases, just about all the cases, the people were getting in there. The people of color, the black people were getting in there because of their qualifications, because they were ready for the job. They just had the opportunity that they wouldn't normally have uh, being a part of that minority group, getting a first look to get in there. But they weren't letting people in there that weren't qualified for it. You didn't see people come out of Harvard and not be qualified for whatever um, career they chose or whatever job they were in. It just gave them an opportunity. If everything was all equal and fair, they could have gotten in there on their own because of their own merit. But it wasn't fair or equal, which is why that that situation was there. But anyway, they did away with that, and now they challenging the legacy thing because I think I was a benefactor of the legacy situation. Although, my father went to Union and I was accepted in Union, well, without even applying, which was quite funny. But I think I would have gotten in there. I think my grades were good enough. Uh, SE, SA, SAT scores were low for a college. And that's because I didn't apply myself. I didn't take that standardized test seriously. And some people, like myself, don't do well on standardized tests. I never have. Uh, more of a critical thinker. I could do pretty well there in answering those kind of questions and doing things like that. But standardized test wasn't. But I still would have done well enough to get in there on my own, I believe. But it just so happened my father went there, and he was at the time he was on the board of trustees, so it was a no-brainer. I was gonna be accepted, and which I was. So I guess you can say the privilege was there, even though I felt like I could have gotten in there. But it was pretty straightforward, pretty even for me. And that's when first time being away from home and then not making excuses. The first 2 years, I was really serious about being there. It was a whole different environment that I was used to, having the freedom of going to class or not going to class. Nobody waking you up and say you got to go. Uh, so that came into play later years when I was there, and getting with the wrong crowd. I guess you in college, you want to get with a crowd that's serious about what they're doing. You can still have fun, but that circle you're hanging in, you know, you all are also studying together. And I was with a crowd that those guys, most of the football players, they were just there to play football. School wasn't that important to them, and I was hanging with them, so school wasn't that important to me for a while. So, so that put me in a situation where when you start messing up at that level, then your chances for probably getting into law school diminishes. And my father saw that. He saw that that was where I was headed, and it was kind of hard to kind of reverse that. I remember him having a conversation, saying, telling me that the way my grades were in college is probably going to be difficult for me to get into law school now, with that kind of thing. So he just wanted me to concentrate on whatever I decide to do and do that the best I could and try to make a good living. So tried to follow that, but just being hard headed at that time, with all that privilege that I had going into college, that was all on me. That I didn't follow his path as far as being an attorney, but I did follow his path as him telling me to give back to my community, give back to my city in any way I can. and that part I think I did as far as being Civic League president and being on some very top important boards and commissions in the city of Portsmouth, and hopefully I contributed to some of the things that you might see now, even though we seem like we're spinning our wheels, but, I felt like that was important. I was a member of the NAACP early on and tried to, fill those gaps that, was important to him as well, uh, community and, civil rights and things like that, and making things fair for people. So I followed him as far as that concerned, even though I didn't follow his profession. But, now although I know he was disappointed, but, I was his son, and, unconditional love was there. So, yeah, I did get a chance to work down there in his office when he was at an advanced age and still practicing. Well, he was in his, maybe late 70s and, had a full life, but was still working in that office. So I had a chance to be there and make sure things that he might normally footwork that he might normally do, but, couldn't do as well, I did, picking up files, getting files, and doing, some of those little things like that, making sure he got to places where he needed to be, and whatever I could do in the office, and, I did that up until he got sick and passed away, and that was a good experience for me, being able to at least have a chance to work with him before he passed away, and, enjoyed it, and we had a good time. Well, I had a good time, and it was a good experience, and, um, it made me feel like, all that wasn't wasted, and then I also had the chance to during that time to take some classes at Norfolk State just to see how good of a student I could be, and I was on the dean's list. I was a A student there, and that proved to me and the classes I was taking there helped me urban planning helped me in the boards, which, the planning commission that I sat on because I learned a lot of book knowledge for that position that I served for 8 years. And I was doing that simultaneously, serving on that board and taking those classes and learning uh, from the experience being on the board as far as getting that book knowledge of urban planning, which was important to have that knowledge when I was on those boards and commissions. So that was pretty much, it's a lot more detailed, and hopefully I'll one day sit down and put all this to pen and paper and let people know the details of me growing up. Just like everybody else, we all have a story to tell. If we sit down and just take our time to write it, then anybody's story would be an interesting read because we all unique in what we do. So just wanted to share that briefly with you so you know a little bit about Slim from the Slim Nation. And one of the reasons I did that because when we have our one-on-ones, one of the things, whatever subject we're talking about, one of the things I like to do is talk a little bit about that person. So whoever I'm having a conversation with, if you don't know them or if you know them, hopefully you get to know a little bit about more about that person's motivation and whatever they're doing now, whatever they're promoting, what drove them or what drives them to do what they do. And sometimes that helps, during the conversation to know a little bit about that person. And then whatever issue or subject that we talk about becomes a, l- a little bit more personal and, a little bit more understanding of that person's drive and their purpose for doing what they want to do. And sometimes people will see themselves in the people that we're going to interview or have a conversation with. And um, even if someone comes up and you might not agree with their opinions or what they say, having a little background of that person will better help you understand why that person takes certain positions. And hopefully, I'll have people up here that probably I won't always agree with. I feel like we can have a conversation with anybody, and it's probably some people that I probably swore out to never talk to again. But I would want to have those people on here so I can better understand. And sometimes it might not work out. It might turn into an argument. But well, hopefully, it won't get to that point. It would be just where we disagree and agree to that. And but each one of us will have a chance to give their opinions, and a lot of people out there might agree with what they're saying. So everybody deserves a chance. So that's what we're going to be all about here on the Slim Nation One on One podcast. And said all that today on Independence Day. Uh, uh, Wanted to have the independence to talk about myself and that privilege thing, yes, I was highly privileged and blessed to be able to be adopted into a family that could give me everything that I needed, and but not everything I wanted because I would ask for some things and they put the foot down on certain things. So most of the things that I got was what they thought I needed for my development and or just for my pure pleasure to have fun with. The bicycles and everything like the skates. But I got some educational toys and of course clothes. So I was not lacking in having enough clothes, and that sort of paid off learning how to dress when I got to Northam because I see Northam during those times in the 70s and leading up to the 70s. You couldn't wear certain things. You pretty much had to not dress up, but you couldn't wear tennis or sneakers. Uh, the girls couldn't wear pants. They had to wear dresses, skirts. And the guys, we had to be presentable, and all to prepare us for going out into that world and um, have making that first impression because the first impressions are lasting. And once your presentation, once you go out there into the world, the way people see you goes a long way. And that's what they were preparing us for back then at Norfolk, making sure that we had to dress a certain way. And everybody adhered to it. And no matter what social economic situation you came from, people made a way to make sure that they presented well at IC Norfolk at all times. A little more, a little looser now, a little different now, but that's what happens. Times goes on and things change. Things are a little different, but it's all fair. But I want to thank everybody for putting up with me and listening today, and look forward to. And I promise you, this Thursday we will have a guest. I thought I was going to have one today, but I didn't. So I thought I was talk a little bit about myself and some of these stories. Some of you have already heard, but some of you might not. So especially the ones on YouTube that come from everywhere, and as well as uh, as well as on our Facebook station or channel or page. Sorry, it's the YouTube channel and the Facebook page. So we are live on both of those right now on Facebook, live on my Facebook page and my YouTube channel, the Slim Nation 101 YouTube channel. So if you miss it, you can go on the YouTube channel and watch it. That'll be out there forever. The you the the Facebook page is going to be on there forever. At some point, that'll drop off, but all this on my YouTube. So we will be seeing you next time, and we appreciate to give a little give yourself applause for being a part of what we do here. And so, oops, let me sign out with my theme music here. Okay, nothing's happening. So we're in with this. Thanks a lot, and We will see you next time. I see what happened. So there we go. The Slim Nation 101 theme song. Funky Trap Sax. Thanks again. We appreciate it. Okay, and by the way, if you watch on our YouTube channel, make sure you subscribe to the channel. It's a brand new channel, so we're trying to get some subscriptions in there. You can like, but the main thing, what I want you to do now is subscribe to our channel so we can start getting those. So if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. Or if you on Facebook Live and you haven't subscribed to this particular channel, make sure you go to a YouTube channel and help me out by subscribing. And we also have a cash out there. If you want to help out in that way, we appreciate that. But that's not something you have to do, but we put it out there just in case. And you people on Facebook, you can send stuff. Okay, we'll get all this together. So